I never thought I would be the kind of person who ends up in a viral Reddit story, but here we are. And honestly, looking back on it now, I realize it was the wake-up call I desperately needed, even though it felt like getting hit by a truck at the time. Some background. I am 36. Work as operations manager for a manufacturing company here in Kansas City. Been married to Lyra, 32, for 5 years. For most of that time, I thought we had a solid arrangement. I handled the financial stuff because I am good with numbers and she hates dealing with bills. She works part-time at this boutique downtown, mostly for the social aspect and employee discount. The thing is, I have always been the behind-the-scenes guy. Growing up, I was the older brother who handled family finances when dad got laid off. My siblings got praise for grades or sports, but someone had to figure out how to stretch groceries and keep the lights on. I learned early that recognition wasn't the point. Results were. So when Lyra would make occasional comments about money being tight, or joke with friends about me being financially challenged, I didn't think much of it. People vent, right? Marriage isn't about keeping score, except apparently it was about keeping score. I just didn't know I was losing. The revelation came through my coworker Kyle, who browses Reddit during lunch. He came back looking uncomfortable, like he had walked in on something private. "You need to see something," he said. "But I am not sure how to tell you this." There on his phone, with over 10,000 upvotes, was a post titled "Married to a Financial Deadbeat. How do I motivate him to contribute more?" The username wasn't obviously hers, but the details were unmistakable. 5 years married, husband in manufacturing, wife in retail part-time. But the story she told was like looking at my life through a funhouse mirror. According to this post, I was a lazy, unmotivated man-child who couldn't hold steady work, someone who left her to handle all the real responsibilities while I avoided adult obligations. The comments were brutal. Hundreds of people telling her she deserved better, that she should leave me, that I was obviously using her. I sat in my car reading comment after comment about what a loser I am. People suggesting divorce lawyers. Others sharing stories about useless husbands they would finally dumped. The most upvoted comment: "Stop enabling him. Cut off his access to your money, and watch how quickly he gets motivated." The irony was suffocating. Here is what those 10,000 sympathetic strangers didn't know. I pay our mortgage. Every month for 5 years, $1,847 automatically deducted from my checking account. I cover utilities, groceries, her car payment, insurance, and yes, her credit cards. The ones she uses for boutique clothes and girls' nights out. I am not perfect. I can be quiet. Maybe too focused on practical things instead of grand gestures. But financially irresponsible. I am literally the only thing keeping our household afloat. The weirdest part wasn't anger. It was clarity. Like someone had explained a puzzle I had been trying to solve for months. All those little comments about money, the eye rolls when I mentioned budget concerns, the conversations where she painted me as practical and boring while she was the free spirit bringing joy to our lives. She wasn't just venting to friends. She genuinely believed her own narrative. I drove home planning to confront her, but when I walked in, she was scrolling her phone, laughing, completely oblivious that thousands of strangers thought her husband was a deadbeat. "Good day?" she asked without looking up. I almost said yes, almost fell back into swallowing whatever bothered me to keep peace. Instead, I saw your Reddit post. The silence was longer than it should have been. Not confusion silence, caught silence. "I don't know what you are talking about," but her face gave her away. "The one where you told 10,000 people I am a financial deadbeat." Then she got defensive, said she was just venting. "Everyone exaggerates online. I wouldn't understand because I don't deal with emotional labor of relationships, but I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. Done being invisible. My contributions minimized, painted as the problem when I am literally the solution to most of our practical concerns." "You are right," I said. "I don't contribute enough. Starting tomorrow, I am contributing exactly as much as you do, Edit." For those asking about our actual split, I calculated it yesterday. I cover about 85% of our expenses while working full-time. She covers 15% working 20 hours a week. Edit 2. Some people asking why I never corrected her before when she made these comments. Looking back, I think I was complicit in my own invisibility. I thought being supportive meant handling everything quietly. Turns out if people cannot see your contributions, They assume they don't exist. Update 1. Well, I did it. And the internet response has been overwhelming. After I posted here, I spent that evening doing something I had never done, calculating exactly how much money I put into our household versus Lyra's contribution. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, car payments, insurance, credit cards, everything. The numbers were stark and honestly embarrassing. I had been subsidizing someone who genuinely believed I was the financial problem in our relationship. The next morning, I made some calls, removed her as authorized user on all credit cards I pay for, set up alerts on our joint account for charges over $50, transferred money to cover exactly half our shared expenses, and left the rest in my personal account. Then I did something that felt both petty and necessary, created a Reddit account and responded to her post. Just wanted to add some context, I wrote. He also pays your credit card bills, but not anymore. I didn't write a novel or argue with commenters who had called me names, just posted a simple breakdown of our actual financial arrangement, with screenshots of bills and bank statements, names blacked out. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Her post went from sympathy magnet to cautionary tale about financial awareness in relationships. People started asking how someone could be so disconnected from their own household finances. My comment got gilded multiple times. The top reply was someone saying, "The audacity of complaining about a partner who is literally paying for your lifestyle is breathtaking." By the time Lyra got home, her post had been screenshotted and shared across multiple subreddits. She had tried deleting it, but the internet doesn't forget. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, crying angry tears for the first time in our marriage. "I did exactly what you did," I said. Told the truth about our relationship to strangers on the internet. The difference is my truth was accurate. She tried making me feel guilty about the credit cards, said I was financially abusing her, that couples should support each other. "Marriage isn't about keeping score." "You are right," I said. "Marriage isn't about keeping score, but it is about honesty and respect, and not painting your partner as a failure to strangers for internet points. Here is what I learned from this mess. I had been complicit in my own invisibility. For 5 years, I handled finances quietly without making sure Lyra understood what that meant. I absorbed her digs about money without explaining what I actually contributed. I let her live in a bubble where she could genuinely believe she was the responsible one. The viral Reddit post was embarrassing and hurtful, but also clarifying. The quiet, supportive approach only works if the other person sees and values what you are doing. If they don't, you are not being noble, you are being a doormat. Edit. Lyra's sister called to apologize. She had seen the viral post and realized all of Lyra's financial complaints over the years were backwards. "I thought you were the problem." She made it sound like she was carrying you financially. Edit 2. For those asking about next steps, we are going to therapy. Despite everything, neither of us wants to throw away 5 years without trying to fix what is broken. Update 22 weeks since my response went viral, and I am still processing how quickly someone's world can crumble when the truth finally comes out. Lyra spent the first week frantically trying damage control, deleting comments, messaging people who had screenshotted, even creating alt accounts to try shifting the narrative back. But once something goes viral on Reddit, it takes on a life of its own. The financial reality hit fast. Her cards got declined at Target, couldn't pay for lunch with friends, had to ask her parents for money for gas. For someone who had been living like she had her own income stream, suddenly depending on her 20 hours a week boutique job was a shock. Her family dynamics shifted too. Her sister Thalia, who I had always liked, came over last weekend to apologize in person. Turns out all those family gatherings where Lyra complained about our finances had painted me as the irresponsible one. She made it sound like she was supporting a man-child. Thalia said, "I had no idea you were covering everything. I feel terrible about some of the advice I gave her." The story even made it to some relationship YouTubers who do Reddit readings. Lyra was mortified when her co-workers at the boutique recognized the details and started asking questions. But here is what has been most revealing. Watching how she processes this situation, instead of acknowledging that maybe she had been unfair in how she portrayed our relationship, she is focused on being angry that I embarrassed her publicly. In therapy, she keeps saying I should have handled it privately, that airing our business online was cruel. Our therapist asked her directly, "How do you think Silas felt reading your original post?" "That is different," she said. I was venting anonymously. He knew it was me responding. The therapist pointed out that 10,000 people validating her complaints about me while having zero context about our actual situation might have been hurtful too. What I am learning in therapy is that we would both created a narrative about our relationship that served our individual needs, but wasn't actually based in reality. She needed to feel like the responsible one, so she minimized my contributions. I needed to feel like the supportive one, so I enabled her blindness. The viral post forced us both to confront the actual facts instead of our comfortable fictions. But here is what has been hardest to accept. I am not sure she would have ever acknowledged this dynamic without public embarrassment forcing her hand. And I am not sure I would have ever stood up for myself without seeing how strangers perceived the situation. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to see how far off course you have gotten. Edit. Someone asked if I regret the public nature of how this played out. Honestly, private conversations hadn't worked for 5 years. Sometimes truth needs witnesses. Edit 2. Our therapist said something interesting. You both participated in creating a dynamic where Silas was invisible and Lyra was uninformed. The Reddit post just made the dynamic visible to everyone else. That hit different. Final update: 6 months since the viral Reddit disaster, and I wanted to close this chapter because a lot of you have been following along. And honestly, writing this out helped me process one of the most difficult periods of my relationship. We are still married, still in therapy. But we are different people in a different relationship now, and I am not sure if that is a success story or just a realistic acknowledgement that sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something honest. Here is what has changed. Lyra got a full-time job at a marketing firm, not because I forced her to, but because having her cards declined at Target was apparently more motivating than 5 years of me quietly covering everything. She is making decent money now and actually contributing significantly to our household for the first time since we got married. We have monthly budget meetings. Sounds boring, but it has been revolutionary. She sees exactly where every dollar goes, and I see that she is actually invested in understanding our financial reality, instead of just complaining about abstract money problems. I have learned to speak up immediately when something bothers me instead of absorbing it until I explode. Turns out there is a middle ground between being a doormat and being an asshole, but you have to practice it. She talks to her friends about being grateful to have a partner who is financially stable instead of complaining about having a boring husband. I actually believe her when she says it because her actions match her words now. But here is what I have really learned. I was complicit in my own invisibility for years. I thought being supportive meant handling everything behind the scenes without ever making sure she understood what that meant. I absorbed her casual disrespect because I told myself that is what good husbands do. The viral Reddit post was humiliating and painful, but it forced us both to confront truths we had been avoiding. Her truth: she had been taking my contributions for granted while genuinely believing I was the problem. My truth: I had been enabling her illusions because it felt easier than demanding acknowledgement. We are building something more honest now, but it required professional help and a lot of uncomfortable conversations. The therapist helped us understand that we would both been living in separate realities about our marriage, and the Reddit post just made those realities visible to everyone else. Some relationships probably wouldn't have survived the public nature of how this played out, but for us, it was apparently the only thing that could have broken through years of willful blindness on both sides. I am not proud that it took public humiliation to fix my marriage, but I am grateful it happened before we had kids or bought a bigger house or got in any deeper. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling someone's illusions about reality, even when the truth is uncomfortable for everyone involved. The lesson I took from this isn't that you should publicly embarrass people who don't appreciate you. It is that you need to make sure the important people in your life actually understand what you contribute before you assume they are just choosing not to acknowledge it. Some people genuinely don't know what they don't know. But once they do know, how they respond tells you everything about whether they are worth the effort you have been making. In our case, Lyra's response was worth saving the marriage. She got a reality check, took responsibility, and changed her behavior, but I learned not to assume that would always be true. If someone makes you feel invisible for what you contribute to their life, address it immediately. Don't wait for a viral social media moment to validate your worth. The quiet, behind-the-scenes approach only works if the other person actually sees and values what you are doing. If they don't, you are not being noble, you are being a doormat. We are still working on things. still learning how to appreciate each other's contributions without taking them for granted. But we are doing it with full transparency now, which makes all the difference. And honestly, when Lyra talks to her friends about our relationship now, she mentions how grateful she is to have a partner who handles financial stress so she can focus on building her career. It is a completely different narrative than the one that went viral, but more importantly, it is an accurate one. Sometimes it takes a public reckoning to create private understanding. I am not saying everyone should air their relationship problems on Reddit, but I am saying that truth has a way of coming out eventually. Better to deal with it on your terms than wait for it to explode in ways you cannot control. Edit. A lot of people asking if the financial dynamic is truly equal now. It is more balanced. She covers about 40% of expenses now versus 15% before. But more importantly, she understands exactly what I contribute, instead of living in a bubble where she could paint me as the problem. Edit 2. For anyone dealing with similar situations, the right person will not need a public accounting of your value to respect your contributions. But if someone is already painting you as the problem while benefiting from your solutions, sometimes the truth needs witnesses. Edit 3. Final thought that has been on my mind. She wanted the world to see how useless I was. I simply showed them how useful I had been. Sometimes the truth is the best response to a lie, even when telling it publicly makes everything complicated for everyone involved.